The man says he is simply an inhabitant of Earth, a civilized society. Blood drips from his mouth as a child calls out to old man Seo, saying her mother asked her to bring him something. He thanked her, and she placed the pot full of hot potato beside Seo, telling him to get well and make more of that soap for them. Then the little girl walked into the blizzard. Once again, he murmurs, I am a person from a civilized society on Earth. Someone who came from a civilized world 50 years ago. He has no idea how it happened, but he somehow ended up in this strange world. It was the day when they were on their way to a workshop with his co-workers when a landslide swept them all away. By all logic, they should have died, but instead they awoke in a bizarre place, facing a giant three-tailed fox and a two-headed gigantic snake with red scales. Strange beings flying in the sky, just like the characters in the immortal Cultivation novels he used to read. Even then, he never imagined that every one of his co-workers would end up living a far better life than him. Celestial beings, known as the immortals, descended from the heavens and were impressed by the talents of his friends. One by one, they were taken away to heavenly realms. Only he and Director Kim were left behind. They held on to hope, thinking that since they were also from another world, something special would eventually happen to them too. But as months passed, reality set in. Neither of them had any special abilities. Survival meant simple manual labor. After 6 months, Director Kim admitted he couldn't keep living that way. With the little money he had, he bought a third-rate martial arts book that was being sold on the street corner. Strangely enough, within 3 months, he had mastered the martial arts and became a martial artist. He began serving the nation and learned more advanced techniques. Soon enough, rose to fame as a powerful warrior and left for the martial realm, leaving Seo behind. Meanwhile, Seo still hopes that something special might happen to him someday, but remains ordinary. 50 years passed, and now he was just an old man, dying alone from a cold. Seo murmured again, I'm a person from Earth, and that he lived alone with sheer desperation. Still, he tried his best to survive. He learned the language, learned how to write, earned money little by little, bought a small plot of land, and built his house. Using knowledge from Earth, he created things this world didn't have, soap, and sold them. But in this harsh martial world, his ideas were quickly stolen. Wealthier men began mass-producing his soap, and brutes pushed him out of the market. And now, in his bed inside a small house, waiting for death, rejected by this world. He wondered what more people expected from him. He tried. He really did. What was the right path? Why was he brought to this world if he wasn't special? Why did he keep living only to lose everything? Exhausted, unable to keep his eyes open, he thought, if only I had a little more power, or even just an opportunity. That's how he died. But his story doesn't end there. He wakes up staring at his own hand, alive, wearing the same clothes he had on the day he arrived from Earth. His co-workers are there too, groaning with headaches, wondering what's going on. And then it hits him. He awakened his ability to regress. One co-worker, Director Kim, was confused as they were just on their way to the workshop and was asking what was going on. Seo remembered that it's the exact same moment as 50 years ago. He vaguely remembers a flash of light as they were swept away by that landslide before everything went black. Someone calls out, "Deputy Manager Seo!" But he stands there stunned, trying to decide what to do now that he's gone back in time. In most regression stories, Seo uses their knowledge of the future. But what did he learn in 50 years? How to make soap, and he barely remembers anything else clearly. Then the guy shouting at him grabbed him on his shoulder. Seo turns to respond, but before he can speak, he gets punched in the face. Everyone gasps. The man yelling calls him an idiot, insisting he must have fallen asleep at the wheel while driving up the mountain and caused the accident. He doesn't realize they actually died. He claims almost everyone died and blames Seo entirely. Seo suddenly remembers it had been so long since anyone called him manager that he didn't recognize he was talking to him. The punch thrower is Section Chief Jeon Myung-hoon, an arrogant man who only achieved his position at the age of 32 thanks to nepotism. Director Kim tries to calm Jeon down while Seo gets up, recalling that on that day he had indeed been exhausted because Jeon dumped all his work onto him, not to mention he wasn't even supposed to be the driver. In the past, he simply apologized, shoulders hunched, thinking that he made a mistake, and that continued for the next 50 miserable years. He apologized when bandits robbed him, apologized when martial artists humiliated him, apologized when a local official took everything from him under the guise of collecting tax. But 50 years of violence taught him something. You must submit only to those stronger than you. Seo calls out to Chief Jeon and says now is not the time to blame each other. Jeon responds by punching him again while insulting him. This time, Seo realized that there is no need to bow to those he can handle. Seo hits back. Hard. Everyone freezes. He steps forward. In his past life, he can't even remember how many times he was beaten by martial artists, bandits, thieves, and tax collectors. Through that experience, he learned something that his co-workers don't know yet. Violence. A punch to the eye amplifies fear. A few hits later, Jeon's bravado collapses, and he mutters the only words terrified men know, "I'm sorry." Seo may not have heavenly talent or martial prowess, but he has something else, experience. The others rush over, shocked. Seo apologizes, pretending he lost his temper. Director Kim scolds both men but tries to keep the peace. Seo knows Kim is the only one who might stay with him, and Kim is destined to become the strongest martial artist, so gaining his trust is crucial. Seo apologizes to Jeon again, but Jeon was so angry calling Seo a bastard. But one glare from Seo shuts him up instantly. Kim suggests they need to find a village. Seo knows the truth. There is no village nearby. This is the path of ascension, an immortal's domain. A world where immortals file around to obtain immortality and martial artists fight for wealth and honor. The law of this world is simple. The strong devour the weak. Seo suggests they set a fire in a safe spot to avoid animals. They agreed to split into groups to search for the car, and the others will look around for somewhere to stay, and to regroup before sunset. Naturally, no one finds the vehicle. That night, as they ate beside the fire, the blue-eyed woman recalled how they had been inside the car when the landslide struck. She couldn't understand how they had ended up outside afterward, with no trace of the vehicle left behind. Director Kim was equally confused by the situation. Nearby, another girl happily enjoyed the food, noting that it tasted like raw chestnuts. Seo also noticed its crunchy texture and reassured everyone that there was plenty for them to eat. Director Kim praised Seo for keeping the group together and consistently showing diligence. Although they were in a serious situation, the atmosphere remained unexpectedly warm. He also recalled that Seo had driven despite his exhaustion because he had worked a night shift the day before. Another woman, along with the others, commented on how dependable Seo had always been. Seo, however, remembered that in their past life they had struggled for hours late into the night just to find a place to rest. In response to his co-worker's words, he merely said that he had been lucky. Seo decided to simply enjoy the moment, knowing that it would be the last time they would laugh together. Later that morning, Seo trembled as he greeted the master of the forest, a three-tailed fox. The fox remarked on Seo's strange scent, noting that in its thousands of years of life, it had never encountered a human like him. His co-worker in green soon woke up and asked about the noises outside. When they looked beyond the camp, they were left flustered by what they saw. "A monster!" they all shouted in unison. Seo shouted, ordering everyone to show respect to the master of the forest and to kneel immediately. The three-tailed fox remarked that insignificant humans were always rude whenever it encountered them, adding that it would have torn them apart if not for the respect Seo had shown. Even so, remaining in its territory required payment, 1 arm. In Seo's past life, no one had known how to react, and everyone had panicked and screamed, leading the fox to take all of their limbs. This time, however, the fox showed a measure of favor because of the respect it had been given. It then asked them calmly, "Who shall offer their arm?" Seo reasoned that the cost would be only one person losing an arm, only one individual would endure the pain, and that the injury could be healed once the cultivators arrived in 2 days. He had even prepared a pain relief herb in advance to reduce the suffering. Stepping forward without hesitation, Seo offered his own arm. The crowd was left stunned into silence. The fox acknowledged Seo with visible satisfaction, stating that because of the respect he had shown, it would ensure the act was as painless as possible. With a single bite, the fox tore off Seo's arm, and his scream of agony echoed through the area. His co-workers shut their eyes as it happened. Seo quickly chewed the special herb he had prepared, using it to dull the pain as he struggled to endure the agony. The fox remarked that it had expected Seo's flesh to taste different because of his unique scent, but instead found it worse than that of ordinary humans, noting that his veins were impure. Seo apologized for the poor offering. Despite this, the fox granted them permission to remain for 7 days under its protection, infusing them with its divine energy. As the three-tailed fox departed, Seo's co-worker rushed toward him in panic. Seo calmly told them to go inside the cave first, assuring them that he would explain everything afterward. Inside the cave, Seo explained to the others that they were no longer on Earth and had entered a martial world realm. The group was left in shock, though Director Kim remarked that such a thing was still possible within his lifetime. Seo also added that the fox's protection would last only a week, after which another tribute would be required. Panic spread through the group. Weakened by what had happened, Seo began to feel drowsy and simply said that he needed to rest. Later that night, Seo overheard Jion plotting to use him as a weekly sacrifice. Another co-worker objected, pointing out that Seo had been helpful to everyone. Jion responded by asking whether any of them would be willing to offer up their own arm instead. A different man insisted that Seo was capable and had provided them with food and shelter. Still, Jion dismissed him as useless now and argued that Seo should be discarded once they had fully benefited from him. Seo listened quietly from the back, hidden from view. He picked up a rock, weighing the thought of killing Jion on the spot. He watched with cold disappointment as his co-workers discussed cutting off his remaining limbs and offering them to the fox week after week. With the strength and violence he had cultivated over 50 years, Seo knew he could easily kill a modern man like Jion, even with only 1 arm. In the end, he dropped the rock. Fear was clouding everyone's judgment, and killing Jion now would likely destroy Seo's future relationship with Director Kim. Someone else snapped at Jion, telling him to shut up if he did not want his ankle broken again. Seo realized that despite Jion's scheming, his other allies were still good people. The next day arrived. Unlike the fox that had demanded an arm, a 2-headed snake with red scales appeared and asked only for a handful of blood. In their past life, this very snake had drained them dry, even after they had already lost all their limbs. This time, Chifo calmly offered his arm. The snake tasted his blood and immediately withdrew. Seo understood the reason at once. Modern human blood was tainted with nicotine and heavy cholesterol, something that clearly did not taste good. Realizing this, Seo told Jion to follow him so they could gather herbs together. Addressing Jion by his full name was slightly rude, but Seo only asked whether he was hungry. When Jion admitted that he was, Seo said he would teach him which herbs were edible. He added that he was even planning to offer his arm to the fox the following week, and that if he died, someone would need to possess this knowledge. Jiyeon responded awkwardly, but accepted the lesson and thanked him. However, Seo knew perfectly well that the fox would never return and that Jiyeon would never need to use that information. Later, Seo scolded Jiyeon for picking the wrong fruit once again, pointing out that he was not focusing on what Seo was saying. Jiyeon apologized, and Seo immediately shouted for him not to eat that fruit. After some time, Jiyeon suddenly stopped, exhausted from digging non-stop, and asked for a break. Seo knew that the man had done nothing but mistreat him back at their company, so he explained that they needed to finish before sunset and that he would only allow a short rest. Eventually, Jiyeon uncovered a massive ginseng and asked whether it was normal. Seo replied that it seemed so. In reality, Seo knew that although it resembled ginseng, it was actually yellow bamboo roots. Normally only fingertip-sized, it had grown enormous here, though he was unsure whether this was because the ascension path was saturated with heaven and earth spiritual energy. The root was useless to the immortals, but ideal for the people of Murim to enhance their internal arts, and it would also be beneficial to Director Kim. As their harvest continued, Jiyeon grew excited about how much more they could find. But as Seo looked toward the horizon, he knew the moment was approaching. A blinding explosion lit the sky and Jiyeon collapsed face first. Everyone clutched their heads as several figures descended from above. The man dressed in yellow remarked that he had never expected to discover raw gems. The man in black ordered another to leave, declaring that all the talents were for him alone. Meanwhile, the man in blue criticized him, calling it a heartless thing to say. Director Kim shouted, addressing the people floating in the sky. The man in black observed that only 3 of them had spiritual roots. The rest were ordinary humans. The man in yellow then formed a yellow orb and struck Jiyeon with lightning. The old man in yellow looked on in excitement, delighted that Jiyeon possessed a heavenly golden thunder body. A figure dressed in black clothes and wearing black lipstick, its gender impossible to tell, played a strange tune, making the blue-eyed girl scream in pain. Clearly pleased, the figure announced that she had discovered a perfect, ghostly and transformation immortal root. At the same time, a muscular man placed a hand on Chief O's shoulder and said that he possessed a unique holy body. He declared that he would accept the 3 of them as Azura's disciples. Under the overwhelming pressure, Chief O could not move and stood frozen in place. Another cultivator argued that Chief O should instead join the Black Ghost Valley, promising cultivation toward eternal life and immortality, power capable of overturning heaven and earth, and immense wealth and honor that could be gained within 100 years. They began arguing over who would claim Chief O, while Director Kim watched in confusion and pleaded for them to be led out of the forest. Otherwise, they would all die. Suddenly, the man in yellow clothes opened a small jade pot and sucked Jiyeon into it, declaring that humans were too indecisive and questioning how they had even reached the ascension path with such worthless bodies. The muscular man then noticed Seo's missing arm and praised his bravery. Though Seo was merely a criminal in his eyes, he acknowledged that Seo possessed a remarkable spirit. With a wave of power, Seo's arm was restored, and Seo expressed his thanks. After that, the powerful beings departed, stating that the forest would remain safe for 10 years now that they had passed through. Kim attempted to beg for help, explaining that they did not know how to escape the forest, but his pleas were ignored, just as Seo remembered from his previous life. At least this time, unlike before, Seo's arm had been restored. Kim panicked, wondering how they would survive in a place like this. Then countless stars began drifting in a specific direction. The next day, inside a cave, the blue-eyed girl coughed blood. Another girl in green worried for her, but Seo told them to wait. Someone might arrive to heal her by coincidence. The others found his confidence strange. Soon enough, a man entered the cave, declaring that they were like ants trying to challenge a dragon. Kim asked who he was, and the stranger introduced himself as Seo Eunhyun, the Sea Dragon King. He had sensed the storm and traced it to this place. The girl on the ground was unconsciously performing summoning wind, an impressive feat for an ordinary human. Seo explained that they had arrived recently, and powerful figures kept appearing to take their companions. The Sea Dragon King laughed, confirming that others had indeed found potential in their group. Ironically, now he too had conveniently discovered someone valuable. He explained that they were standing on the path of ascension, also known as the way to rise beyond. The Sea Dragon King added that this path was a passage leading to the upper realm, and that a dimensional crack called the Ascension Gate would appear near their location in a few months, an event that only happened once every 1,000 years. Because of this, countless cultivators and spirit beasts gathered here, all attempting to ascend to the upper realm. That was why so many strange individuals had appeared. Director Kim asked why their companions had been taken into strange objects. The Sea Dragon King explained that it was common for people here to store their entire clan inside an artifact, much like the item he was holding, so they could carry their groups through the gate. He added that he himself had brought along one of his castles, which contained 1,800 sleeping sea dragons. That statement shocked both Seo and Director Kim. The Sea Dragon King noticed the unusual potential of the girl in pink and said that, if he accepted her as a sea dragon, she could become an unimaginable being. Director Kim tried to protest, but the Sea Dragon King instantly crushed him to the ground using pressure alone. The Sea Dragon King then lifted the girl and declared that he would share his blood with her so she could become one of them. He warned the mortals never to ask too many questions of a high cultivator, explaining that he had answered them only out of generosity. Other cultivators, he said, would kill them like bugs for asking even a single question. After delivering his warning, he ascended into the sky in his dragon form. The next day, after losing several of their companions, the girl in green clothes began laughing hysterically at everything that had happened to them, a landslide, a dragon, a Taoist, and companions vanishing without a trace. Seo tried to comfort her as she begged him not to be kidnapped as well, fearing she would not survive the forest alone. However, Seo sensed that their time was running out. Suddenly, she screamed in pain and shouted that something was coming. Director Kim panicked and said that it was happening again. At that moment, an old man riding a mechanical demon lion appeared. The old man wondered how mere commoners had reached the Ascension Gate without possessing a spiritual root. He assumed that an unstable gate had dragged them in by accident. He then asked which of them had performed the amazing formation, believing that an elder from the upper realm had descended. His attention soon shifted to the girl crying out in pain. Director Kim tried to protect her, but the old man struck him down effortlessly. Seo barely managed to catch Director Kim, injuring his own back in the process. Director Kim thanked Seo, then panicked when he noticed Seo's wounded back, but Seo assured him that he was fine. The old man examined the girl and declared that he would take her away. He said that although she did not possess a spiritual root, he could awaken one with his own ability. Excited, he spoke about the formation, believing it could eventually evolve into a cultivator's formation. The girl cried out for her companions, but the old man grew displeased when she ignored him after he announced his intention to take her. Without even touching them, the old man lifted Director Kim and Seo into the air and threatened to kill them both. The girl in green clothes begged him, saying she would do anything if he would spare their lives. The old man told her to forget every relationship she had ever formed, and she agreed. Satisfied with her answer, he released them, only to immediately state that leaving them alive would still keep her emotionally attached. He then opened a portal and sent Seo and Director Kim to an unknown place, throwing them into it. As they were pulled into the portal, Seo quickly grabbed the herbs wrapped in white cloth. They landed in an alley crowded with vendors selling scriptures and cloth. Seo was the first to wake up. He stood up and walked out of the alley, drawing strange looks from passers-by who thought he looked like a maniac because of the way he was dressed. Seo raised a hand to shield his eyes from the sunlight and suddenly realized he recognized the place. This was where he had once lived, the capital of Yanggu, the city of Seo Eunhyun. Kim panicked, overwhelmed by everything that had happened. Seo admitted that he felt the same and wished it were all just a dream. With all of their companions taken away, only the two of them remained. Still, Seo refused to repeat his past, where he had become nothing more than a powerless herb collector. They needed to move, explore the city, and find a way to survive. People around them stared and spoke in a language Kim could not understand. Seo mentioned that the people were commenting on how strange their clothes looked, which made Director Kim question him. Seo said that he knew Chinese, and Director Kim was relieved to hear that. However, the truth was that the language was different. The symbols looked somewhat similar, but it was an entirely different language. In his past life, he had spent 2 months living among beggars just to learn how to communicate, but this time, he refused to do that again. Seo suggested that they buy new clothes, but Director Kim asked how they could do that when they didn't even understand the local currency. Seo then brought their massive bamboo root to an herb shop, shocking the shopkeeper. He confidently claimed that the yellow bamboo root was at least 800 years old. The shopkeeper agreed and offered 15 silver saises. Seo accepted without bargaining, an amount he could never have imagined earning in his past life. With the money, Seo bought a large house and new clothes, and he promised Director Kim that he would teach him how to communicate. However, after bribing the guard to purchase the house and land, they were left with almost no money. Kim then noticed Seo's wounded back and asked with concern if he could call him by his name instead, since they were no longer at the company. Seo agreed. Director Kim smiled and called him by his name. Once they had settled in, Seo explained that their money came from selling herbs, but it would not last long because they only had a few left. They needed a stable source of income. Kim suggested selling the remaining herbs and starting a business, an idea that made sense for a former company manager. However, Seo wanted more, since he had regressed. He remembered that in his previous life, Kim had unknowingly been a martial prodigy who became one of the world's strongest simply by reading a third-rate martial arts book he found on the streets. After that, Kim learned advanced martial arts and rose to become a top martial artist in Yanggu. What if Kim learned advanced martial arts from the very beginning? He could become the greatest swordsman decades earlier. With this plan in mind, Seo decided to stay close and benefit from the luxury that would eventually fall to Director Kim. Seo then told Director Kim that murim and martial arts truly exist. He suggested learning self-defense martial arts first before starting a business, since they might one day be attacked by scumbags. Director Kim was delighted to hear about martial arts and asked how they could learn them if outsiders like them were not allowed. Seo already knew Kim would be interested, as he was known to be a fan of murim. Seo then explained the 7 sects renowned in Seo Eunhyun City. The demon-slaying sect, self-binding temple, surpassing bird house, and 7 mysteries gate are known as the righteous sects. The Wolf Fang Gang, Dark Knight Association, and Dragon Fighting Stronghold are known as the evil sects. Together, they are referred to as the 4 Stars and 3 Demons. The 4 Stars 3 Demons sect mostly focuses on sword and blade techniques. The self-binding temple practices Buddhism, while the surpassing birdhouse gathers information similar to How Moon. There is not much information about the 3 demons, but they are known for their stealth and their pursuit of illegal activities. Seo then asked which one was his favorite. Kim chose the demon-slaying sect, just as in the previous timeline. Director Kim was curious about how Seo learned all of that information. Seo explained that he had asked a martial artist while he was at the office. 3 months later, Seo brought Director Kim to a sect, telling the guard that Kim was his brother and that he wanted to learn martial arts. The guard looked at them with disappointment, thinking they seemed to have some money. He then refused Seo's request, saying it was too late for Kim to learn martial arts because of his age. Seo approached the guard again, holding a silver ingot, and suggested that they at least speak to someone in a higher position. Even learning self-defense from them would be enough. At the office of a high-ranking official, the staff confirmed that they were the ones who wanted to learn martial arts for self-defense. Seo then handed over 16 silver saises, asking for the best self-defense possible. The officer agreed and suggested that Kim could become an outer disciple, but only one of them would be allowed to join, and there would be no privileges despite the size of their donation. Director Kim was shocked. For the amount of hard-earned money they had offered, this was all they could get. He was about to shout at the officer, but Seo cut him off and thanked the Hall Master for allowing Kim to join as an outer disciple. The Hall Master then instructed Kim to report to the Hall of External Disciples later that day. Kim asked why they had spent such a large amount of money, saying they could have gone to another sect to learn martial arts instead. Seo reassured him and pointed out that Kim was not good at using his body. Seo then explained that he would use their leftover silver saises to do business and support Kim, so he could focus entirely on learning martial arts. Kim agreed and said that he would do his best, though he was not entirely sure if he could learn the basics at his age. Seo encouraged him and told him to trust himself. 7 months later, at the inter-sect martial arts contest, Kim shocked the entire sect. The elders were questioning what was happening. Despite starting with no martial background and at an old age, Kim defeated disciples who had trained for years. The demon-slaying sect is one of the grand sects of Seokyung City where talented martial artists gather. However, an outer disciple, Director Kim, appeared and defeated all the direct disciples. It took Director Kim only 7 months to master the absolute dragon saber technique and become a first-rate martial artist. The elders were baffled. Progress like his should have been impossible, as even talented martial artists struggle their entire lives to reach the first-rate realm. Suspicion began to grow, and they imprisoned him as a possible spy from another sect. Seo was imprisoned alongside him as well, even though Seo knew nothing about martial arts. Seo asked whether Kim was worried that they might cripple him, but Kim was not. He felt that he was on the verge of breaking another barrier to reach the next level, and he continued practicing even inside their room. Seo was shocked by Kim's progress as he broke through again after already becoming a first-rate martial artist. Seeing Director Kim's growth, Seo thought that the birth of the heavenly great swordsman had been advanced by 40 years. 7 days later, Kim awakened with flowers drifting around him, clear evidence of a breakthrough. He stood with confidence and declared that he no longer feared the demon-slaying sect leader. Seo praised him, still shocked by how quickly he had advanced. Kim admitted that even though he had not known he possessed such talent, perhaps all the martial arts novels he read as a child had helped him intuitively grasp the essence. The elders rushed into Kim's and Seo's room, accusing them of being spies who had tried to steal the demon-slaying sect's martial arts. They declared that the two would be crippled by having their meridians destroyed. Seo tried to calm the elders and insisted that they were not spies, but one of the elders punched him, claiming they had been overheard communicating in an unknown language. After the elders' action, Director Kim finally moved. He slashed off one elder's hand. Kim then told them that this sect was the first place where he had received a lesson. Another elder tried to attack him, but Kim slashed all of their hands with his sword. Realizing that Kim had reached the Zenith realm, the elders fled in fear. Director Kim then decided to travel to different sects to learn more martial arts and asked Seo about his plans. Seo pledged to follow him and suggested that Kim begin by learning from the dragon-fighting stronghold, a renowned evil sect. Kim agreed with pleasure and told Seo to go ahead first. He said he would shake off the elders and the whole master of the demon-slaying sect before leaving. Later, in a mountainous area, Kim waited for Seo and asked what had taken him so long. Seo laughed and said that Kim was simply too fast. Seo then noticed that Director Kim's sword was covered in blood, and he remembered how Kim had once pointed out Seo's violent behavior in the past. However, this world had changed them, forcing them to fight to survive. Seo thought that if he ever regressed again, he would rather return to Earth. But for now, he knew he had to live in the present. After that, Director Kim swiftly took over the dragon-fighting stronghold. They then traveled across Yanggu for 2 years, defeating many different sects. By the 3rd year, Director Kim had defeated every sect in Yanggu. He was granted the title Heavenly Supreme Master, and, through his renown, united the Murim sects to establish the Woolen Alliance. 7 years later, Kim and Seo had formed a brother-like relationship despite their age gap. Kim even created a martial art specifically for Seo, called the Severing Mountain Swordmanship. Director Kim explained that by fully understanding this martial art, Seo could eventually become a Zenith Master. When Seo read the manual, he discovered that the techniques written inside were first-rate martial arts. However, Seo had no talent for martial arts at all. Even after Director Kim patiently explained the techniques in detail, Seo only managed to reach the 3rd-rate level after 1 year of training. Seo accepted this reality and remarked that at least he was skilled in medicine. 10 years later, Seo witnessed the legendary phenomenon known as 5 energies converging to the origin. As Director Kim focused his concentration, 5 blue energy balls floated above him, and he began to transform. He emerged as if reborn, 20 years younger and far stronger. Seo was left in shock by the completeness of his transformation. Director Kim now looked younger than Seo. Both of them knew that the world would be shocked if others learned about Director Kim's complete transformation. Soon after, Director Kim said that it was time for him to find a successor for the Woolen Alliance. Seo asked if there was anyone who satisfied him. Director Kim explained that a leader needed to possess decent martial arts, yet no one truly understood the art. Seo remarked that this was because Director Kim was exceptional and had no rival under the heavenly sky. Director Kim sighed in disappointment as he watched his disciples. 15 years later. It had been 35 years since Seo began walking the path of ascension. Now 65 years old, he found himself wondering what Kim was doing. 1 year after undergoing skeletal reconstruction, Kim had handed over his position as leader and left the alliance. Seo had hoped they could retire together, but responsibility had kept him bound to the alliance's strategic duties. Kim had always said he wanted to travel the world freely, and perhaps that was why he had not attended the retirement ceremony. While strolling through his garden, Seo muttered that the place felt too quiet. He had bought a beautiful mansion with his retirement funds, but its vast size only made the loneliness more apparent. Suddenly, he noticed someone hiding in the bushes. When he went to investigate, he was stunned to see Kim. Even now, Seo was not used to Kim's long hair. He asked where Kim had been and why he had not shown up at the retirement ceremony. Before he could press for answers, Kim collapsed onto the grass, calling out Seo's name and saying that he thought he had been blessed and destined to walk the path of martial arts. Seo replied that Kim was obviously blessed. If Kim was not a genius, then who was? Kim chuckled and admitted that among ordinary mortals, he truly had never been ordinary. But Kim's expression darkened as he revealed that he had fought those known as ascetics, mysterious figures from 35 years ago, like the man who once flew into the sky and abducted their friends. Seo immediately understood. These practitioners rarely showed themselves, yet they secretly controlled the Yanggu imperial family. As the Woolen Alliance grew stronger, these mysterious beings tried to influence it. Opposing them was like opposing a nation, So Kim had no choice but to comply for the sake of the alliance. That was why Kim had left. He wanted to challenge them as an individual, not as a master whose actions could endanger the alliance. Kim explained that they had been incredibly difficult to track down, but eventually he located one. Most ignored him, believing he was unworthy since he was still mortal. They escaped using flying or illusion techniques. But 5 years ago, one finally accepted his duel. When Seo asked if he had won, Kim nodded. Seo praised him, relieved that he had done it after leaving his position as Wulin leader. Otherwise, the consequences could have been disastrous. But Kim confessed the truth. He had staked his entire life on that battle, and all he managed was a tiny cut on the man's finger. The practitioner had made a bet that even the smallest cut would count as Kim's victory, so technically, Kim had won. Seo assumed that meant the opponent was among the top 10 strongest beings. But Kim said the opposite. The practitioner claimed he was only the second lowest in the ascetic world, a second-grade martial artist compared to Murim. Seo couldn't believe it. In his past life, he had known cultivators to be unimaginably powerful. Kim had reached the pinnacle of humanity, able to use martial arts while airborne and slice through 10,000-year steel like tofu. How could someone like that barely scratch a low-rank cultivator? Kim told him the harsh truth. He was just a big fish in a small pond. They had no chance against ascetics, who were like natural disasters. Then Kim revealed something shocking. He had severed one of the cultivator's hands. Seo asked excitedly if that meant he had defeated the man, but Kim shook his head. The cultivator had simply placed a talisman on the wound, instantly regenerating his hand, as if nothing had happened. Realizing he had reached the limit of what martial arts could offer, Kim came to say goodbye. The cultivator he had fought recognized his willpower and offered to accept him into his ascetic clan, where he would have to start again from the bottom. Seo was stunned. To become a cultivator meant abandoning mortality, something only possible with a spiritual root. But Kim explained that his skeletal transformation had elevated him, granting him the equivalent of the 5 elements' spiritual roots. Ordinary men like them would need an entire lifetime to achieve what ascetics were born with. Kim sliced through the air, revealing a portal, and prepared to leave in pursuit of even greater heights. He said he would leave one final gift for Seo. Before Seo could protest, Kim vanished, leaving behind a book, a record detailing how to transcend martial arts and surpass even the ascetics. Time passed. Seo eventually found himself coughing up blood again, struck down by a simple cold. It had been 50 years since he had arrived in this world, and now he was dying just as he had in his past life. Destiny seemed inescapable. The only things that had changed from his past life were his house and his bed. Yet he was still dying on the same day. Determined not to repeat the regrets of his past life, he had lived a busy, relentless life and never even considered marriage. He had managed to unite every clan in Yanggu and amass great wealth, but he felt nothing but sorrow. Perhaps, he thought, if he and Kim had pushed even harder, they might have reached the heavens. His second regression ended with regret, and his world slowly faded. He woke again in the same forest, on the path of ascension, his body renewed with energy. Regression wasn't limited to just one lifetime. Just then, the brown-haired man appeared, raising his hand to slap him while cursing. This time, Seo easily dodged. As the man swung angrily, Seo wondered why he had regressed again. He had new strength, a new life, but everything he had built over 50 years was gone. He wasn't sure whether he should be happy. But no, he considered this a curse that denied his life. It would be tolerable if it happened once or twice, but what if he regressed continuously, infinitely? He would be trapped in a painful cycle, forced to relive his life over and over. These companions weren't the same people he had once known, even if they wore the same faces. The director Kim he had considered a brother no longer existed. By then, Jeon, who had been throwing punches at him, was stopped by director Kim. Jeon continued cursing him, claiming Seo had almost killed them. Seo calmly told him to stop blaming others, since he was supposedly the driver that day. He explained that he had only taken the wheel after telling Jeon that he couldn't sleep the night before because Seo had been doing Jeon's work. He also reminded him that no one could dodge an avalanche on a narrow road and that instead of blaming him, they should focus on figuring out what to do next. Seo then took charge. He told director Kim that he would look for a place to spend the night, while everyone else would search for the car or a way out of the forest. Once it got dark, he would start a fire so they could easily find him. But alone in the cave that evening, he pondered whether building relationships was worth it if he was always destined to end up alone. The thought of eternal regression terrified him. He decided he needed to rid himself of this ability. He wondered if returning to Earth might break the cycle, but he had no idea how to do so. Still, the old man's words echoed in his memory. Nearby dimensions are unstable when the ascension gate is open, so even commoners get sucked in. Perhaps that explained how they had ended up in the forest. Seo thought he might be able to use the ascension gate to return to Earth. If he became strong enough, stronger than ever before, maybe he could reach that path. Just like director Kim, he would need to become a cultivator. With that in mind, his goal was now set in stone, to become a cultivator and reach the ascension gate. At dawn, somewhere in the forest, Seo ate the familiar herb and felt a surging ki flowing through his dantian. Unlike in his past life, he could now draw energy from yellow bamboo roots. He practiced the dragon vein technique to open his ki pathways. Even knowing what to do, Seo still struggled, his body burdened from years on Earth and full of junk food. He began crafting a wooden sword to test his skills. In the past, he had been an average second-rate martial artist, but now his abilities were even worse. He hadn't wielded a sword for a long time before he died. Still, when he struck a tree and left a clean cut, he knew it was only a matter of time. All the theories were still intact in his mind. Manager Kim witnessed the cut and, amazed, asked how it was possible. Seo realized that the man who would help him grow stronger had finally arrived. Seo then asked director Kim if he wanted to learn that very skill. Director Kim was delighted. But before he could answer, a giant fox appeared, calling them lowly humans who dared to trespass in his forest without permission. Seo had lived so long that he had almost forgotten this encounter. In his first and second lives, he could do nothing but lose an arm. He remembered just how weak he had been. As his co-workers tried to stop him, Seo walked toward the giant fox. He tried to recall what had happened in his second regression. He had promised to become a cultivator, achieving the 5 energies converging to the origin, studying under the best for 100 years, yet he had only reached first-rate martial artist at best. This time, he tore off his own arm to buy everyone time. His co-workers were shocked. Seo then offered his arm to the giant fox, vowing that even if it took a millennium, he would not give up until he became stronger. The fox praised his resolve and accepted his offering. It ate his arm, allowed them to stay, and then departed. Afterward, Seo resumed his relentless training, pausing only when the cultivators came to take his friends. He continued without stopping until the 4th day, when the sea dragon arrived for another companion. Seo dared to ask why the dragon wanted a girl who lacked a spiritual root and might only live for 100 years. The dragon replied that once she accepted his blood, she would awaken a spiritual root suited to her. Seo asked if he could also receive such an opportunity, but the dragon warned him never to make demands of someone like him. Beings who lived for thousands of years saw and understood things far beyond what humans could. Seo was fortunate that the dragon was kind. Others would have killed him for making eye contact alone. With that, The Sea Dragon King ascended to the heavens in his dragon form. The next day, Seo asked the same question about manager Kim, who was also an ordinary human without spiritual roots. The old man then revealed the existence of an extremely rare pill that could open spiritual roots and turn mortals into cultivators. Seo realized he had gained invaluable information. Eventually, they were sent through the portal by the old man. When Seo opened his eyes, he found himself on top of a tree and immediately recognized the area as the southwest of Yanggu. This was thanks to traveling all across Yanggu during his second regression. After wandering the land for 100 years, he knew every corner of Yanggu. Seo then woke Director Kim, explained everything to him, and slowly accepted his new reality. They settled in Hobyok City, buying a small house with the money earned from selling herbs. Seo taught Kim the local language and the severing mountain blade technique that Director Kim had created. Kim's talent proved monstrous. In just 3 months, he achieved 3 flowers gather at the summit. Watching this discouraged Seo, who had needed 2 lifetimes to reach the first-rate martial artist realm. Kim excitedly claimed he could now defeat Seo, and Seo only smiled. This was no longer the Kim he once knew. In truth, Seo felt more like a great-great-grandfather beside him. Because of this, Seo decided he should not stay with Kim this time. He handed Kim a book and announced that their paths would part. Director Kim was confused and asked why Seo had made such a decision. Seo did not want Kim to repeat the past, to rise to leadership, only to fall after encountering a cultivator. In his second regression, little had changed. Director Kim created an advanced version of the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts. Traveled around challenging cultivators, was defeated by a powerful one, and eventually abandoned martial arts to become a cultivator instead. Seo did not want to see Director Kim suffer that despair again. Seo explained that he wanted to travel around the martial world to achieve a higher state. Kim was not sure if he could live without Seo around, but Seo reassured Kim that he could with his martial arts. He knows how to defend himself, how to read and to communicate. Kim was saddened, not wanting to lose the only familiar face from Earth. So Seo made him a promise. Every 2 years on this exact day, they would meet again in the same small house. With that, Seo persuaded Director Kim and set off on his own journey. At the Hall of the 8 Respects, Seo declared his desire for a duel. A guard mocked him, but Seo instantly shattered the man's spear, proving he was no ordinary challenger. He vowed that in this life, he would do everything possible to grow stronger. Inside, he faced the sect leader, a master wielding a sharp-tipped nunchaku. The leader was surprised that someone so young had already reached first rate. Seo paid his respects and requested instruction through a duel. The sect leader attacked fiercely, but Seo deflected the strike with a single move, stunning the monks. The chief praised him, recognizing that Seo had achieved unity with the sword and stood at the peak of first rate. Seo replied humbly, though he believed himself talentless compared to those born with natural gifts. If regression made him seem like a genius, then this time he would act like one. Declaring the use of sword energy, he unleashed the severing mountain swordsmanship first technique, transcending peaks. He followed with rapid forms, forcing the chief back and shocking the entire hall. The sect leader countered with an aura-filled attack, yet found no opening. With the 7th technique, Deep Mountain, Seo nearly struck the leader's face. The disciples gasped as they realized Seo was growing faster and stronger mid-battle. Finally, with the 12th technique, 7 Lights Emerging Peak, Seo shattered the sect leader's nunchaku and ended the duel. The chief admitted defeat. Seo bowed respectfully and departed, leaving the entire sect murmuring in awe. Seo walked through the center of the sect as whispers followed him. At least there was no ambush. This was an orthodox sect that followed tradition and moral codes. However, Seo's true goal lay with the unorthodox sects, the outlaws. In this life, his first objective was to travel everywhere and eventually reach Pinnacle Realm. He had already challenged 4 more sects across Seokyung City. He lost to the Yunruibo sect and the Wiyung Moon sect, but won against Gaijubang and Yunwolbo. Now, at the Hojang sect, he struck down the purple-robed captain with a single cut, sending him flying unconscious. An old man laughed, recognizing Seo as the first-rate martial artist who had been challenging sects everywhere. Seo replied humbly that these battles had taught him much. Then a group of martial artists appeared behind the old chief. The chief declared that Seo would now face 10 elders. Seo thought this might be a long-forgotten, unorthodox tradition. He argued that the duel had already ended and said he had never heard of fighting 10 opponents at once. The chief laughed and replied that Seo had just heard of it for the first time. Seo warned him that other sects would learn of this cowardly act, which would greatly damage their reputation. The chief did not care. He claimed that Seo would die from an infected wound, and that people would only hear how the sect had taken great care of him, but failed to save him. That way, the sect's reputation would remain intact. Surrounded by laughter, Seo finally understood how insane they were. Smiling, he accepted the duel. This was exactly why he had come. The elders attacked, and Seo fought for his life. Later that night, people in a bar talked about the foolish martial artist who had dared to challenge the Hojang faction and was said to have died. They mocked his arrogance until Seo himself walked in, drenched in blood and covered in wounds, calmly asking for a bowl of noodles. The waiter welcomed him and offered a seat. Simply walking to his table silenced the crowd that had been ridiculing him moments before. In truth, the battle had nearly killed him. It had been 10 against 1, and their blades were poisoned. Only the first-rate medical techniques he had learned in the past, along with an antidote he consumed, saved his life. After killing the 10 elders, the sect leader ordered everyone to attack. Seo fought like a beast to survive, stabbing the leader and severing the tendons of those still breathing, crippling them permanently. No one would ever come for revenge. After eating, Seo realized the stimulant he had taken had not yet worn off, leaving him unable to sleep for the next few days. He picked up his sword and left, already thinking of requesting another duel, this time with a righteous sect. The legend began to spread. After defeating the Hojang sect, the young martial master ate a bowl of noodles and continued his journey. Soon, people across Seogi gave him a new title: the Infinite Fighting Spirit, Seo Eunhyun. Seo knew he lacked talent. To reach the pinnacle, he had to fight without end, pushing himself between life and death. A talentless man had no choice but to embrace madness. And so, he traveled across Yanggu, challenging both righteous and unorthodox sects to duels every day. 5 years later, an explosion shook a courtyard as Seo performed the severing mountain technique once more. His ki flowed smoothly, yet destructively, forming sword silk, a power only those at the peak could wield. Even manifesting it placed immense strain on his mind, but without it, his dream was unattainable. At that moment, an enemy struck from behind. Seo turned and blocked the blade, but the colliding energies detonated, engulfing the area. He was slammed against the wall, his energy scattered by a single blow. From the smoke, a figure emerged, disappointed that the so-called Infinite Fighting Spirit, Seo, had failed to meet expectations. It was Director Kim, the strongest martial artist under the heavens. Seo forced himself to stand, admitting that Kim's talent was truly monstrous. Kim, stronger than ever, accepted Seo's congratulations. Seo immediately noticed that Kim had completed full skeletal reconstruction in just 5 years. Looking at his own hands, Seo wondered what he had achieved in that same time. Even after 5 years, he was still only a first-rate martial artist. This was the cruelty of heaven, how the lack of talent could crush a person's spirit. Kim explained that after reaching 5 energy conversion, he realized a truth. He had become the strongest man in Yanggu. No one could last even a second against him. Because of this, he planned to form an organization and offered Seo a seat within it. Seo refused immediately. He preferred the life he had always lived. Moreover, in every lifetime, Kim was obsessed with leading an alliance. If Seo accepted, he would become a vice leader or strategist, a role he had already endured for an entire past life and wanted no part of. Every second mattered. With his talent, only real experiences could push him toward the pinnacle. Kim persisted, offering one-on-one training and constant sparring, but Seo declined again. Across 2 lifetimes, he had already learned everything Kim could teach him. What he needed now was real combat, something Kim himself had once said was essential for a martial artist. So Seo chose to watch his friend from afar and continue his endless duels. 20 years passed. Kim returned to the same house, but this time Seo looked pale, finally accepting the truth that the heavens had completely abandoned his talent. Kim observed that despite countless hours of training, Seo had shown no real improvement. Seo explained that although his understanding of sword energy surpassed anyone at his level, he still could not endure more than 3 attacks from peak masters. Kim found this strange. Seo was nearly one with the sword. Someone with that level of experience should have reached the martial peak long ago. But Seo already knew the truth. This was his limit. Blood dripped from his nose as he admitted he could only maintain his technique for half a day. If he could sustain it for a full day, perhaps he would find a breakthrough. Wishing him success, Kim handed Seo a thick book, his personal notes from a battle with a core formation cultivator. He had barely survived, escaping the cultivator's spell by a thread. Seo questioned how simply fleeing could yield such profound insight. Kim replied that cultivators were walking natural disasters. Escaping one required understanding far deeper than martial arts alone. Seo promised to preserve the knowledge for future generations, then left once more to seek another core formation cultivator. Before parting, Kim offered one final hint to reach the pinnacle realm. Seo must maintain awareness of every part of his surroundings at all times. Confused, Seo asked what that meant. Kim explained that it was the same as utilizing one's surroundings in every duel. Seo had to train until he could sustain that level of concentration, not only in battle, but constantly. Seo was puzzled. Even maintaining sword energy felt as if his skull was splitting open. How was he supposed to process everything around him non-stop? What if his brain exploded? Yet he knew there was a reason Kim had given him this task. So he began training by engraving everything he saw into his brain, memorizing every detail and the position of all things around him. 5 years later, Seo had trained relentlessly to expand both sword energy and spatial awareness. Yet each time he opened his eyes, nausea and dizziness overwhelmed him. Remaining aware of every sound only worsened it, making him question whether he could even fight properly in his current state. For 30 years, Seo wandered across Yanggu, challenging every sect he could find. Unsure if any remained, he turned to hunting bandits for bounties. Fighting enemies without honor made survival uncertain, but Seo never wavered from the path he had chosen. Suddenly, a bandit burst from the bushes, shouting that he had found the bastard. Their leader declared Seo's death. Seo steadied himself. Even if he died here, he would continue walking this path. 15 more years passed. Kim and Seo finally met again, both alive and covered in scars. 45 years had passed since Seo's regression, and he had finally reached a state where he could maintain awareness of all 5 senses at all times. Yet he still had not entered the pinnacle realm, and doubt began to weigh on him. Kim revealed that he had become infamous among cultivators, even earning a bounty on his head. Recently, 2 core formation cultivators had set a trap for him. He barely escaped, though he managed to wound one of them on the cheek. Seo assumed Kim had gained immense knowledge from the encounter, but Kim disagreed. This time, it was not knowledge, only realization. He admitted that he could never defeat them. Without instant escape, death was guaranteed. Perhaps the 5 converging energies truly marked the end of martial arts. Even the author of the record of gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts had likely reached the same conclusion. No matter their talent, mortals could never defeat cultivators. Seo saw himself reflected in Kim, 2 opposites, one blessed by heaven and one abandoned by it. Different, yet strangely alike. Seo voiced his frustration at failing to reach the pinnacle realm. Kim was equally puzzled. With Seo's ability to imitate sword energy and maintain awareness, it should have been impossible for him to remain stuck below the pinnacle realm. Kim proposed a guiding duel, and Seo accepted without hesitation. Beneath the moonlit forest, their clash erupted violently. Seo was sent crashing into the woods, doubt flooding his mind. Kim insisted that Seo should have reached the pinnacle realm long ago, even with his terrible talent. Perhaps what he lacked was a motive, a reason, or a desperation strong enough to trigger a breakthrough and shatter his limits. Seo snapped. What greater desperation could there be? For 50 years, he had done nothing but swing his sword. He spent his entire life just to surpass first rate. He lived and slept with his sword, pouring energy into it, even maintaining awareness in his dreams to sense his surroundings. Why then would the heavens deny him the next step? He collapsed to the ground, throwing a tantrum like a child, shouting his frustrations to the sky. Seo knew how shameful it was, a 70-year-old man crying to heaven for the next stage. Even after choosing this path and craving enlightenment, he still could not break through. Seeing this, Kim carved a new martial art into a tree, one meant to reinforce Seo's current weakness. It would not comfort him, but Kim hoped it might calm his heart. With that, Kim vanished again, leaving behind the Mountain Lord martial arts and transcending peak step technique. 5 more years passed. More than 50 years had gone by since Seo's return, and he knew his time was running out. Gazing at the sky, he wondered if Kim had already died. Once again, fate seemed unchanged. Mortals could never escape their destiny. Suddenly, Kim appeared, without arms. Seo rushed to him in horror, but before he could fetch medicine, Kim grabbed him and flew off, defying his lack of limbs. Kim pointed to the cultivator chasing them like a dog, explaining that this was the price for severing another cultivator's arm. Yet Kim laughed heartily, thrilled that he had inflicted significant damage on a core formation cultivator. For the first time, he had glimpsed the stage beyond the 5 converging energies with his own eyes. Seo stared at him, bewildered. Above Kim, a blue sphere of energy formed, his final technique. Seo recognized it, a gang chi. Kim released the energy ball, noting it had blown off a core formation cultivator's arm. The blast struck Seo's house, obliterating half the forest. Kim urged Seo to witness the technique he had pursued his entire life, now surpassing all established martial arts. Seo watched his house, built with 50 years of hard-earned money, get destroyed. Kim laughed with pride, having traveled thousands of miles to show his ultimate technique, and promised to leave this legacy to Seo. Seo calmed himself, ignoring the growing rage, and focused on studying Kim's technique. Though saddened by the destruction of his house, he was grateful no one had been inside. Observing the sword marks on the debris, he realized the Gangshi condensed 1,000,000 sword energies into a single point. He was awed by the power of Kim's new martial art. As they fled, Kim reminded him that the technique had severed a core formation cultivator's arm. Now he was confident enough to face cultivators directly instead of ambushing them. They began descending into the forest. An explosion tore through the trees. Kim, gravely injured, begged Seo not to forget the essence of his experience and to pass it to future generations. Seo reassured him that he had heard everything and urged him to stop talking, warning that his life was in danger. The cultivator finally caught up, calling Kim the Wuji ghost and warning Seo that Kim was a criminal who had committed crimes against cultivators. When he asked if Seo was an ally, Seo sprinted away with Kim on his back. The cultivator allowed them to escape, dismissing Seo's efforts as pointless. Laughing at Seo's audacity, he unleashed a violent energy, raising hundreds of corpses. Seo fled, breathless, wondering why he was still running when he had already retired. Even so, he spoke to Kim while escaping the cultivator's summoned corpses, bitterly joking about how absurd it was that both of them were being chased by such things. When a zombie nearly caught them, Seo severed its head and shoved the body into the others. He ran with all his remaining strength, pursued by zombies for countless days and nights. At the edge of a mountain, the cultivator finally cornered him. He was astonished that Seo had survived 4 days of pursuit and coldly stated that Kim was already dead. Seo already knew. The cultivator asked why he had not abandoned the corpse, saying he only wanted Kim's head and had no interest in Seo. Seo laughed, which was questioned by the cultivator. Though talentless, he had come this far through Kim's teachings. Drawing his sword, he declared that if the cultivator wanted Kim's head, he would have to take his first. Enraged by such disrespect, the cultivator tore an arm from 2 zombies and grafted it onto Kim's corpse, turning him into a puppet ordered to kill his own disciple. Kim attacked wildly. Seo shouted in fury at the cultivator for disgracing the dead, but the cultivator only smiled. Seo was grateful that Kim could no longer use martial arts, only brute force, yet even that strength was overwhelming. His hands trembled. Pointing his sword at Kim was unbearable, but he had no choice. It had to end quickly. He prepared the Severing Mountain Swordsmanship 21st move, Heavenly Lake. He recalled once asking Kim why the technique bore that name. Kim had said the Heavenly Lake reminded him of Bakdu Mountain, reflecting the sky, unchanging yet containing all forms of heaven. The technique absorbed the enemy's strength, repelled it, and sealed the energy within the sword, a martial art created specifically for Seo. But as long as Kim's body remained, it would keep moving. Seo would need to destroy every part with all the moves of Severing Mountain swordsmanship. Before he could strike, Kim's body mutated into a writhing mass of flesh, empowered by the cultivator. Seo knew this was the end. He charged forward, choosing a technique that would burn his very soul. He absorbed everything: sight, sound, smell, humidity, temperature, the taste of his own blood. His mind screamed as if about to explode, his eyes burning as he vowed to finish this, even if his brain ignited. Suddenly, something shifted within Seo, and he froze. The brain that had been on the verge of exploding opened a new path the moment he accepted death. His consciousness drifted into a void, leaving him unsure whether he was trapped in an illusion or losing his mind. Then he noticed it, thin red lines trailing from Kim's hand. Kim's attack slammed into the ground with immense force, but Seo narrowly evaded it. When he glanced at his own sword, he saw a faint blue line along its edge. Guided by instinct, he followed that line and the blade sliced cleanly across Kim's chest. Seo understood then. This was the view of the pinnacle realm. Kim was smiling. One was blessed by the heavens, the other abandoned by them, opposites yet alike in one way. Both had spent their entire lives suffering, struggling to escape the fate imposed by the heavens. As he cut Kim into pieces, Seo said that at this moment neither genius nor dunce existed. There was only a man who had died fighting his fate, and a man who was about to die doing the same. Wondering if this was the end of his own life, Seo still chose to resist fate. He unleashed his 15th move, shattering the edge of the mountain along with Kim's body and raising a massive smokescreen. The cultivator shouted in hatred as Seo fell from the mountain. Seo softly told Kim to rest in peace. At last, Seo ascended to the realm he had long sought and brought this life to an end. This was his 4th regression. Seo looked down at his hand and realized he had returned. In his previous life, he had fought from the very first day until his final breath and finally ascended. He shouted that he had reached the threshold of the pinnacle realm, the dream he had chased his entire life. Right on cue, Jion, the same man from the beginning, rushed over to strike him, shouting about Seo's crazed yelling. Yet Seo saw it, a red line aimed straight at his face. With his eyes closed, he ducked. Jion demanded to know what he was doing, but Seo no longer needed sight. He could perceive Jion's movements perfectly. In his past life, he could also dodge Jion's attacks with closed eyes, but that had relied on decades of martial experience and predicting strikes. This was different. It felt like a premonition. Seo finally understood why no number of first-rate martial artists could defeat a pinnacle master. A pinnacle master could clearly see every trajectory of attacks from anyone below. Against such perception, the weak had no chance. Instinctively, he saw countless openings on Jion, blue lines marking his own paths, red lines revealing the opponent's attacks. The gap between them was so vast that the openings seemed endless. But after only a brief moment of analysis, blood began to drip from Seo's nose. His brain burned fiercely, and he wondered if this strain was caused by using the vision. Jion lunged at him again, cursing him as a maniac who had nearly killed everyone. Seo calmly tapped the back of Jion's neck, knocking him unconscious. A sharp pain surged through Seo's head just as Kim rushed over, clearly worried. One of the girls in green hurried to his side, asking if he was all right. Seo was shocked by how intense the pain was, considering he had used the technique for only a few seconds. After calming everyone down, he guided them to the cave. They ate roasted fruits, and soon everyone fell asleep. That night, Seo went outside alone to practice, using only a twig without reinforcing it with ki. He sliced falling leaves. He realized that while the vision of the pinnacle realm revealed the paths of an enemy's attacks, his mind instinctively marked them with red and blue lines. Using this vision, Seo could read any opponent's movement and strike their weaknesses along the most optimal path. Only now did he fully understand Kim's words from his past life, that his constant effort to maximize his senses had been an imitation of the pinnacle realm. It was a method of forcing his 5 senses to calculate an opponent's attack path. By focusing only on the tip of the twig, he could clearly see how to destroy each falling leaf. The vision of the pinnacle realm was truly extraordinary. As leaves drifted down, Seo closed his eyes and imagined enemies before him. He struck smoothly, cutting the leaves one by one with perfect precision. When the sun rose, he celebrated. He had reached the martial peak. As expected, his brain still felt as if it were being fried. Even after consuming 8 yellow bamboo roots and circulating the dragon vein chi method, he could only maintain the vision for 2.5 more hours. In this life, he no longer needed to sell yellow bamboo roots as he had in his past regression. With his abilities, money was no longer a concern. Seo returned to the cave where his co-workers slept. Watching Director Kim, he planned to pass in the 6 volumes of insight that the previous Kim had given him, along with the verses left before his death, which Seo remembered clearly. He was certain that this Kim would surpass the Kim of his past life with that knowledge. And now that Seo was a pinnacle master, whatever he would later learn from Kim in this life would be incomparable. He still did not know how to reach the next stage, but unlike others, he had no choice but to train endlessly, to fully master the vision and adapt his mind to it. His first goal in this new life was to eliminate the pain caused by using the vision, achieve the state of 3 flowers, gather at the summit, and ultimately reach the pinnacle of the pinnacle. The next morning, just as in Seo's past life, the fox, lord of the forest, appeared again. When Seo was about to offer his arm, curiosity struck him. He wondered whether the fox would also be marked by red lines. The moment he activated vision, his world was drenched in crimson. Red filled everything around the fox. Seo instantly understood he could not win. As the fox ate his arm, Seo was left questioning why the entire world before him had turned red. A few days later, the cultivators arrived, and Seo was shocked once more. Using vision, he saw nothing but red again, no openings at all. He finally grasped the true gap between martial artists and cultivators. No matter how strong a pinnacle master was, they could never defeat even the lowest realm of cultivators, the first star of the key refining stage. The day after the cultivators took his companions, the Sea Dragon King arrived at the cave to take Deputy Manager O. Seo seized the chance to ask a question. Curious, the Sea Dragon King allowed him to speak. Seo described what he had seen and asked about the cultivators' crimson domain. The Sea Dragon King explained that cultivators possess a unique form of consciousness. Some call it divine consciousness, others awareness. It was essentially an ability. For mortals, this consciousness remains inside the brain. For cultivators, it extends outward, enveloping their surroundings. As a spiritual creature, the Sea Dragon King said he could do the same, and asked if that answered Seo's question. Seo thanked him respectfully as the Sea Dragon King departed. Director Kim was left stunned and confused. He could not understand their conversation at all, since Seo and the Sea Dragon King had spoken in the Yanggu language. Not long after Manager O was taken, the hunchback old man riding a puppet appeared again. This time, he came for Manager Kim. Without hesitation, he shoved both Kim and Seo into the spatial rift he created. They were transported underwater this time. Seo dried his clothes while cursing the old man. Director Kim soon woke up and asked where they were. Seo replied that they were in a completely different place. After observing the surroundings, he concluded they were near Chango City, recognizing Yanggu's head lake where they had fallen. Director Kim wondered what they should do and suggested asking the locals. He noticed buildings across the lake. Seo immediately dove in, telling Kim he would go first to borrow clothes and food. As he swam, Seo remembered this place well. In his previous life, it had been a den of mountain bandits he had raided. Their leader was a late-stage first-rate master, and the vice-leader was a mid-first-rate. The rest were mostly third-rate to second-rate martial artists. However, their numbers were overwhelming, and back then Seo had been forced to coat his sword with poison just to survive and win. One of the bandits spotted Seo on the shore. Another burst into laughter, mocking how insane Seo was for swimming all the way to their hideout, and warned him to leave if he didn't want to die. Seo ignored them and kept walking forward. As he drew closer, one bandit cursed and swung a wooden bat at him. Seo rammed into him with his shoulder, knocking the man unconscious in a single hit. The remaining bandits froze in shock. Seo picked up the fallen man's weapon, tested its weight, and calmly asked who among them had killed before. A bandit holding a morning star cursed him back and boasted that he had killed more than 50 people. Seo swung the wooden bat and severed the man's head as easily as cutting tofu, leaving the others speechless. Then Seo declared that anyone who had ever killed a person should step forward and attack him. Inside the bandits' main building, several men were laughing loudly as they ordered women to approach them. One of them noticed Seo standing at the entrance, holding a severed head in one hand and a wooden bat in the other. The bandit leader immediately ordered his men to grab their weapons, calling Seo a rat that had crawled into their den. As Seo watched their behavior, he realized there was no point in asking questions. Everyone in the room deserved to die. In an instant, the bandit leader sensed Seo's presence and realized he was a pinnacle master. Trembling, he begged for forgiveness. Seo calmly asked how long he had been there, and the leader answered that it had only been 15 minutes. Seo recalled his past life, when it had taken him nearly an entire day to slaughter this same group, setting their hideout on fire, retreating, and killing them one by one with a poison-coated sword. Now, it had taken only 15 minutes, using nothing but a wooden stick. Seo bid his farewell to the bandit leader. The leader tried to stop him, offering to lead him to their hidden money. Seo cut him down without hesitation. He already knew where the treasure was. Afterward, Seo freed all the prisoners. They knelt before him, calling him a great warrior and thanking him for avenging them. One asked for his name or title, swearing to repay him someday. Seo scratched his head, thought for a moment, and gave the title from his past life, the Infinite Fighting Spirit. After that, they traveled to Changho City with the money taken from the bandits. They forged identity tags and even bought an estate. Just like in Seo's past life, he taught Kim both literacy and martial arts. Within 2 months, Kim had already reached the level of 3 flowers gather at the summit. Seo nearly felt depressed at Kim's speed of growth. Most people spent their entire lives trying to reach the pinnacle realm, yet Kim had skipped past it simply through the guidance of a pinnacle master and access to first-class martial arts. Seo congratulated him, amazed that Kim had reached such a level before even finishing his literacy lessons. Kim himself was equally shocked by his own talent. Seo had never truly faced Kim in a serious duel at the 3 flowers level, as Kim always focused on teaching rather than fighting. Curious about the outcome between himself as a pinnacle master and Kim, who had just stepped into 3 flowers gather at the summit, Seo issued a challenge. Kim accepted immediately. Back in the forest, Seo swung his sword, tearing the ground apart. From mid-air, Kim unleashed a series of attacks, severing Vein Saber, Dragon's Mound, and more. Using his vision, Seo saw the blue lines fading and knew he had to dodge. He kept evading, but at this rate, he would never find an opening. Then a fierce desire to win ignited in his chest. At that moment, Seo understood. This was his final chance to defeat Kim in this reincarnation. Kim's growth was terrifying, and the next time they fought, Kim would already be far beyond his reach. Kim struck again, forcing Seo back. Seo realized that this moment, right after Kim had entered 3 flowers, gather at the summit, was the only time he could still win. He decided to go all out. Seo launched hidden weapons at Kim. Kim was surprised but managed to block them, though his rhythm was broken. Seo seized the opportunity, using his superior combat experience. He drove his sword into the ground and unleashed a devastating attack, Flowing Ridge. Kim only smiled and declared that he would show the true power of 3 flowers gather at the summit. A chill ran down Seo's spine, screaming danger. Kim activated Blade Chi and sent a slash straight at Seo. Seo knew that facing it head-on would split him in half. Yet the severing mountain swordsmanship he wielded had come from Kim himself, the genius of the century who had reached 5 energies converging to the origin. Seo unleashed his own technique, Echoing Valley, and a violent explosion tore through the forest. Through the smoke and dust, Kim praised Seo, impressed by his martial arts. Seo, however, was stunned. Kim had actually withstood his attack. Under normal circumstances, Kim's sword should have shattered completely, and Kim himself should have been sent flying. Then Kim's blade fell to the ground, and he calmly admitted his loss. Kim was not injured, but for a martial artist, a broken weapon was already a great humiliation. He openly acknowledged that Seo possessed far greater combat experience. Seo told him not to worry, because he would never defeat him again. As he said those words, he accepted a harsh truth. This was the last duel in which he would ever be stronger than Kim. Later, back at their estate, Seo prepared a gift to celebrate Kim's ascent to 3 flowers gather at the summit. Kim felt that the duel itself was already more than enough, but Seo handed him a stack of books instead. They were Gazing Cultivation and Exceeding Martial Arts Scripture, which Seo had bought from an old man. Seo explained that the minimum requirement to even understand these texts was reaching the 3 flowers gather at the summit. Seo had tried to read them himself, but could not comprehend a single thing, so he entrusted them to Kim. Kim promised to study them seriously. After properly learning how to read, Kim buried himself like a madman in the 6 volumes Seo had given him. 4 months later, Seo returned home with money earned from successfully hunting a big shot. Inside the estate, he saw the books scattered open across the floor, but Kim's presence could not be felt anywhere. Suddenly, Kim materialized out of thin air like a ghost, startling Seo. Kim explained that he had learned techniques beyond martial arts from the books, powers that surpassed everything they previously knew. He even expressed admiration that not even Seo had been able to detect him. Instead of relief, Seo felt uneasy. He clearly remembered seeing Kim use a similar technique in the past, but back then, Kim had only managed it after reaching 5 energies converging to the origin. Yet now, it had taken Kim only a year to perform the same feat. Kim explained that the technique he used was one of the skills recorded in the books Seo had given him. He added that if a pinnacle master like Seo could not sense him, then he could likely kill anyone without being detected, if he chose to. Hearing this, Seo felt a surge of jealousy at how terrifyingly talented Kim was in martial arts. Kim then announced that he planned to travel to gain real combat experience and invited Seo to come with him. Seo declined, saying he wanted to further stabilize his understanding of the pinnacle realm. Kim agreed, as it made sense, especially since he was still in the early stage of the pinnacle realm and could not yet use sword silk. Slightly irritated, Seo added that he was beginning to grow curious about the imperial court, hoping that one day he might be useful to Kim as he roamed Jianghu. Kim appreciated Seo's concern for him. For now, they went their separate ways, though it was clear that Seo had other motives for joining the imperial court. Through knowledge from his previous life as the strategist of the Murim alliance, Seo already knew that the imperial family had close ties with cultivators. Some even speculated that the Yanggu clan itself was a branch family of the cultivator clans. With this in mind, Seo enlisted in the Yanggu military. Thanks to his reputation for hunting bandits, he was welcomed without hesitation. Relying on his current strength, he rose quickly through the ranks, becoming a general and later applying to join the Imperial Guard, which he passed without difficulty. All of this was accomplished within only 5 years after his regression. A high-ranking official personally instructed Seo to protect the emperor and be prepared to lay down his life at all costs, stating that such a duty was fitting for a pinnacle realm master. Seo accepted the mission without hesitation. Dressed in a black uniform, Seo joined the Imperial Shadow Guards. For 4 months, he trained in stealth arts and the ghost breath method before officially being assigned to guard the emperor. However, on the day he finally met the emperor, Seo discovered something shocking. The emperor was a cultivator. The mere presence of his consciousness made it clear. Seo soon confirmed that the emperor had been born a cultivator, already possessing spiritual perception. His suspicions deepened after meeting the rest of the imperial family. Most of them were cultivators as well, possessing divine consciousness. Although none were especially high-ranking compared to the 3-tailed fox, they were still cultivators at the chi refining stage. Seo could not understand why someone like him was even needed to guard them. The emperor's aura alone revealed his true strength, the first star of the chi refining stage. With that level of power, the Emperor surpassed all the Shadow Guards combined. At that moment, Seo realized the truth. The Shadow Guards existed simply because the Emperor did not want to personally deal with assassins. Assassins appeared almost every night, and Seo spent his days cutting them down. At the very least, the constant attacks provided him with real combat experience. 5 years passed as Seo continued serving the imperial family as one of the imperial Shadow Guards. During that time, Kim eventually became the leader of the Murim alliance. Seo, serving as the Emperor's guard, could no longer meet him openly. Instead, they met in secret whenever they could, sharing drinks and catching up like old times. One day, as Seo quietly observed Kim in meditation, he saw something astonishing. Thousands of red lines appeared around Kim's sword, countless paths where an opponent could strike. The sight reminded Seo of a cultivator's consciousness, though it was far beyond his understanding. He felt that if he had reached the 3 flowers gather at the summit, he might have been able to comprehend it. Even so, Seo continued to observe, hoping to gain at least a clue about sword silk. Soon after, Kim absorbed the surrounding energy and underwent a skeletal transformation. Seo congratulated Kim, remarking that he looked much younger. Kim explained that he had officially reached the realm of 5 energies converging to the origin, though he regretted that Seo had not reached the 3 flowers gather at the summit. If he had, Kim believed Seo would have learned a great deal just by watching. Seo agreed and admitted that his own realm was still lacking. Kim, however, pointed out that Seo must have gained something from what he witnessed. Later, while walking through the forest, Seo asked whether Kim had encountered cultivators. Kim confirmed that he had. Seo then explained that the domain Kim displayed looked similar to a cultivator's consciousness and wondered if there was a connection. Kim replied that he felt capable of fighting a cultivator of the chi refining stage on equal footing. Perhaps, he suggested, humans who reached 5 energies converging to the origin shared a similar perspective with cultivators. Seo found the idea fascinating. There was a real possibility that martial artists could cultivate in a way similar to cultivators. Just as the gap between a first-rate master and a pinnacle master was unfathomable, the difference between the pinnacle realm and 5 energies converging to the origin was equally incomprehensible. Seo hoped that what he experienced that day would help him when he eventually reached that realm himself. After receiving further martial guidance from Kim, Seo returned to the imperial palace. A few days later, he sensed an assassin hiding on the palace ceiling. A red line shot toward him, belonging to someone who had just reached the pinnacle peak. Seo easily blocked the hidden weapon. When the assassin attacked with a sword, he deflected it effortlessly. Yet Seo found it strange. Instead of fully focusing on the fight, his thoughts kept returning to the moment Kim ascended. As Seo's sword released an aura, he began questioning himself. What was sword chi? It was proof of sword-body unity, first formed at the mid-first-rate stage. Upon entering the pinnacle realm, one could always see the optimal path. As long as that path was followed, sword chi would never be extinguished. While clashing with the assassin, Seo continued reflecting. The optimal paths he saw were ultimately the extreme limits defined by his sword arts. Then it struck him, sword arts and blade chi were fundamentally the same. But if that were true, when Kim had once turned into a zombie in the past, he should have retained his sword chi. Yet he had not. Seo realized that intention was the missing factor. The red and blue lines were not merely attack routes. They were manifestations of the martial artist's will. The moment this realization dawned on him, Seo felt something strange flow through his sword. It was as if veins sprouted from the blade itself and burrowed into his skin. The assassin attacked again fiercely, but Seo countered with a powerful slash, exposing her and sending her flying. She spun across the courtyard like a Beyblade. Seo remained deep in thought. If he continued to feed his blade with intention, he could advance even faster. And finally, nearly 10 years after stepping into the pinnacle realm, Seo reached its mid-stage and gained the ability to wield sword silk. The girl, injured and confused, stared at him in disbelief. As Seo walked closer, he recognized her face. She was one of the newly hired attendants of the emperor. Seo noted that reaching the martial peak at such a young age was extraordinary. If she had lived long enough, she might have reached the 3 flowers gather at the summit. From the ground, she asked if he was the infinite fighting monster. Seo was startled that she knew the name. 10 years ago, after he had saved several people from bandits, they had given him that title. In Yangguo, he was indeed known as the infinite fighting monster. The girl cursed the emperor, claiming that her brother had been far more talented, but that the emperor had destroyed everything. Seo told her that emotional pleas were meaningless. By palace law, all assassins were to be executed on the spot. At that moment, the guards arrived, shouting about the assassin. The girl insisted that Seo was on the wrong side, saying that innocent people were dying because of the emperor. Seo silenced her, reminding her that even listening to an assassin was a crime. He then finished the task. Afterward, Seo felt ashamed for killing such a rare talent, so he ordered the others to dispose of the body. The disturbance spread throughout the palace, yet the emperor never stepped out of his chambers. A silencing technique sealed the doors, making it clear that he had no intention of hiding the fact that he was a cultivator. After all, every shadow guard already knew this, since even the lowest requirement to serve was reaching the pinnacle realm, which allowed them to identify cultivators. Even so, the guards continued to protect him. This was the duty given to them. Strangely, assassination attempts began increasing at an alarming rate. This was unusual, as Yangguo was in a peaceful era under the emperor's rule. Although poverty still existed, no innocent people had turned into bandits or criminals. Seo began to question who was repeatedly sending these assassins. The fact that the girl knew his nickname confirmed that she was from Yangguo. Seo pondered these questions and decided that he still had time to uncover the truth. For now, he was more interested in cultivators than in assassins. 10 years later, through constant effort, Seo earned enough of the emperor's trust to gain limited access to information within the royal palace. He still could not touch confidential records, but he was allowed to review documents from the public office and search for clues related to cultivators. Eventually, he discovered what seemed to be their location. The investigation had taken a long time, but it was still better than during his days as a strategist in the Wulin Alliance. And with years of experience fighting assassins night after night, Seo believed that he could now set his sights on reaching the 3 flowers gather at the summit. As he continued reviewing the documents, Seo noticed something strange in the background reports. The number of orphans and beggars had drastically decreased because of His Majesty, and the number of bandits had also declined. The explanation felt incomplete, far too simple for an official government record. What troubled Seo most was what was missing, how the number of beggars had gone down. Had they all starved to death? If such a massive loss of life had occurred, he would have known in his previous life. The records said nothing about improving their lives, relocating them, or granting them money. It was as if they had been quietly removed. There had been no famines or wars in Yangguo. Seo recalled the girl from 10 years ago who claimed that people were dying because of the emperor. He had found it hard to believe back then. The emperor was no sage, but he was better than average. So where had all those erased beggars gone? If even official documents avoided the truth, then cultivators had to be involved. Missing information always led back to them. Seo decided to leave the deeper investigation to Kim. At the Wulin Alliance, Kim's retirement ceremony was being held. Many were saddened, but Kim himself looked genuinely happy. His expression made it clear. His retirement marked the moment he had fully mastered all 6-gazing cultivation and exceeding martial arts scriptures and was finally ready to search for cultivators. Seo entered and remarked on how refreshed Kim looked. Kim admitted that he had thought an assassin had arrived, only to realize it was his old friend. He also noted that Seo's aura had begun to resemble that of an assassin after years in the Shadow Guard. Seo went straight to the point and told Kim everything he had discovered in the royal palace. Naturally, Kim was deeply interested. Seo pointed out several locations where cultivators might be hiding and asked Kim to gather more information. Kim accepted gladly, as he had always wanted to know what the cultivators were truly doing. Through Kim, Seo hoped to understand the cultivators' intentions. Sometime later, during a night patrol, a soldier reported that the northern gate was secure. Seo noticed that assassination attempts had recently decreased. It was impossible for their enemies to continuously send Pinnacle Realm martial artists. Then suddenly, flames erupted nearby and a scream rang out. Assassins had reached the east gate. A man appeared holding a burning talisman, asking mockingly whether everyone present had reached the martial peak. He complained that stealth was useless against such opponents. Seo's worst fear was confirmed. They had sent a cultivator this time. A white-haired guard shouted a warning, telling everyone that the enemy was a cultivator and to prepare for the worst. The cultivator laughed, mocking their foolishness for daring to resist. He mentioned that they might have faced a cultivator at the first star of the chi refining stage before, but declared that he himself had already reached the second star. As his aura exploded and the talisman ignited, he declared that he would kill everyone present and slaughter the bastard of the Makli clan. Flames swept through the hall, burning guards alive as the cultivator smiled. Yet amid the inferno, Seo stepped forward and slashed through the flames. The cultivator was surprised, calling Seo an insect for daring to block his attack with such arrogant eyes. Outside the hall, a guard attempted to strike a barrier, only to have his sword shatter. Someone shouted that a cultivator was attacking the palace and that reinforcements were needed. Inside the hall, only a few guards were still standing. Most lay on the floor, burned and groaning in agony. Explosions echoed as Seo rushed forward, repeatedly pouring intent into his sword. He was trying to evolve his technique from sword silk to sword gang, but the cultivator only laughed. Breaking the barrier was impossible with Seo's current strength. Seo's next strike slammed into the barrier with everything he had. Energy collided violently, cracks spreading across it and shocking the cultivator. At last, the barrier bent, forcing the cultivator back and receiving a small cut from Seo. But Seo reached his limit. Blood poured from his mouth as his chi was completely exhausted. Maintaining sword gang without enlightenment was beyond his body. He was thrown across the hall. Before he could recover, the cultivator appeared behind him and kicked him brutally, demanding to know how such an inferior being dared to injure him. Originally intending to toy with Seo, the cultivator changed his mind. He decided to impale him and kill him slowly. The cultivator threw several talismans, which transformed into sharp spikes. The remaining guards tried to stand and protect their vice-captain, but the spikes shot forward and pierced through them. The cultivator warned them not to interfere. Their fate would not change. No matter how much they struggled, a cultivator would trample them to death. As Seo lay on the ground, he understood how desperate his situation was. His internal organs were shattered after exhausting all of his chi. The cultivator crushed his hand like an insect, fully aware that Seo was still alive. Seo thought bitterly that he truly was seen as nothing more than an insect, his talent, his skill, and even his life. The cultivator misunderstood his silence, believing Seo was begging for mercy. But Seo had no intention of surrendering. He had trained for years, endured countless hardships, and accumulated experience others could never imagine. Even if he died here, he refused to believe that everything he had done was meaningless. With all his remaining strength, Seo forced himself to raise his arm, even though his hand was already crushed. He realized that the cultivator, despite his stealth, had never fought a battle where every single move truly mattered. He had simply been born with talent and fortunate enough to learn cultivation methods. Seo refused to lose to someone like that. He grabbed the cultivator's clothes and refused to let go, even as his crushed hand screamed in pain. He had trained too hard and suffered too much to let all those years be wasted. Seo shouted that even an insect's struggle was not meaningless. The cultivator stumbled and fell, throwing out talismans while demanding Seo release him. But blood suddenly began to drip from the cultivator's nose. Seo knew then the poison had taken effect. He had never intended to escape. He had only used Sword Gang to break through the cultivator's barrier and create a single opening, just enough to land one cut and poison him. Blood streamed from the cultivator's eyes as he tried to chant an enchantment to cure himself. Seo clamped his mouth shut, preventing him from speaking. He told the cultivator to feel the strength of the insect he had looked down upon. Gripping the cultivator's hand, Seo stopped him from forming any seals and dared him to resist. Seeing this, another guard rushed forward to help restrain the cultivator. Outside, the talisman barrier finally shattered, and reinforcements flooded in. When it was over, the cultivator lay dead. The guards helped Seo to his feet, remarking that the cultivator who had called him an insect had died just like one. Later, Seo woke in a haze of smoke and saw the white-haired guard sitting beside him, puffing on a tobacco pipe. The old guard asked if he was finally awake. Seo confirmed it and questioned whether it was appropriate to smoke beside a patient. The old guard casually replied that tobacco was a miraculous herb. Seo could only sigh in disbelief, reminded that this era held very different medical beliefs. The old guard then explained that the emperor had sent an imperial doctor to treat him. Seo noticed his body felt unusually light. The doctor was truly skilled. Hearing this, Seo felt a desire to learn from such doctors. However, the old guard added that the physician warned Seo would be able to use his hand, but it would never return to its former state. He needed rest, and any excessive exertion would only worsen the damage. Seo recalled how the cultivator had completely crushed his arm. It was only natural that he would not recover unscathed, so he replied that he was already grateful he could still use it at all. The old guard also revealed that the emperor had been impressed by Seo's willpower and decided to grant him a reward. Unfortunately, the emperor could not personally bestow gifts upon the shadow guards, which was why the old guard had come instead. Clearing his throat, the senior guard formally announced that, in the name of His Majesty, the vice-captain of the shadow guards, who had risked his life to defend the throne, was being bestowed the Shukoden, a legendary pill said to be consumed by cultivators. Seo responded respectfully, "Long live His Majesty." When he opened the container, he saw a strange red pill. The old guard explained that it seemed to be a modified version of Chukadan, used by chi-refining cultivators to advance into foundation-building cultivators. However, the old man added that it lacked an essence, though he did not understand what that meant. Seo immediately recognized it as a pill made from Chukadan residue. In his past, while working at a medical center, he had experimented with making elixirs himself. There was always residue left behind after refining elixirs, and what he received was a pill formed from that leftover material. Seo reasoned that the old guard was unaware of this since he had never studied medicine. Such pills were usually sold to drunks or cultists and were not particularly effective. Inwardly, Seo thought the emperor was rather petty. Then the old guard revealed something shocking. He had heard the elixir could extend one's lifespan by 10 years. Seo was stunned. That claim made little sense to him. He noticed the old guard's eyes lingered on the pill with clear interest, but there was nothing he could do since the emperor had already bestowed it upon Seo. Seo thanked him and said he would consume the pill once his internal veins had fully healed. The old guard departed, reminding him not to forget His Majesty's kindness. Seo, however, thought it would be wiser to take the elixir only near the end of his life, to see how effective it truly was. Still, he felt glad that he had joined the Imperial Guard in this regression and gained such rare benefits. Staring at the elixir, Seo marveled at the possibility that it could grant him 10 more years of life if taken before his final breath. He felt satisfied, convinced he had made the right decision by serving the Emperor in this life. Some time later, at the training ground, his sword rolled across the ground as Seo grimaced in pain, staring at his hand. His body had fully healed, yet a constant pain surged whenever he tried to grip his sword tightly. He realized then that he could no longer perform the severing mountain swordmanship. Seo wondered if this was where his martial arts would end in this regression. Yet he was persistent and would never give up. He had reached the pinnacle realm through pain and suffering, and the pain he felt now changed nothing. It followed him like a shadow. Seo swore to himself that he would never surrender and would surely reach the next realm. Another 10 years passed. It had now been 30 years since Seo regressed. He had grown accustomed to the pain in his right hand, perfected his sword silk, and mastered the shadow techniques. His greatest achievement, however, was that he was close to uncovering the cultivator's secret through a letter Kim had sent. From that letter, Seo learned that most cultivators hid their homes and locations within powerful formations. Weaker cultivators built their dwellings in the mortal world, but those with talent or descendants of famous clans lived entirely within proper formations. Ordinary people also lived in those territories, serving as slaves. Kim further revealed that one of the cultivator clans was responsible for repeatedly sending Pinnacle Realm assassins to the royal palace. They had been gathering talented ordinary people within their territory and training them into Pinnacle Realm martial artists. With this information, Seo finally understood where the missing beggars from the records had gone. They were either trained as assassins or forced to spend their lives as slaves. After finishing the letter, Seo burned it. He also concluded that the Emperor must be involved in the conflict between cultivator clans. Even with all this knowledge, Seo knew it was not yet time to act. His focus still had to remain on martial arts. Just then, Kim suddenly appeared, asking what Seo was mumbling about, startling him. Seo explained that he had just finished reading the letter Kim sent. Kim replied that he had sent it a month ago. It had taken a long time to arrive, and he had now come in person after discovering something important. When Seo asked what it was, Kim said they first needed to remove some suspicious formations. He then explained that there were 2 cultivator clans in Yangguo, the current emperor's clan and the former imperial clan known as the Jin clan. These 2 clans had been fighting for control of the country. The Jin clan had ruled for centuries before being overthrown by the Makli clan, who now governed Yangguo. Since then, the Jin clan's influence had greatly declined, which was why they began abducting ordinary people and training them as assassins. Seo replied that he already knew all of this from the letter. Kim said that the truly important part was only beginning. He then asked Seo how he thought the Jin clan was able to abduct ordinary people and train them into Pinnacle Realm martial artists. How could cultivators mass-produce Pinnacle Realm fighters? Kim revealed that the Jin clan had been infusing the bodies of their assassins with the spirits of their own family members, forcibly awakening their talent to an extreme level. Seo was shocked and asked if that meant the Jin clan was killing the assassins' families and implanting their spirits into them. Kim answered that it was actually the emperor's clan, the Makli clan, that was killing those families. Seo could not understand, so Kim explained further. For the past 20 to 30 years, the Makli clan had been making medicine out of orphans and beggars. They collected ordinary people's blood and life spirit to create pills that extended cultivators' lifespans. They targeted the poor because their disappearance would go unnoticed. Seo said this was nothing less than cannibalism. Kim agreed, stating plainly that cultivators were eating people. Seo could hardly believe it. Not even unorthodox sects or demons had sunk this low. It was those who claimed they would ascend to the heavens. The more he heard, the more disgusted he became at the emperor's cultivators. He then remembered the girl who had warned him that people were dying because of the emperor. Yet Seo had devoted his entire life to protecting those very people. In the end, he realized he had personally killed countless innocents with his own hands. Kim continued, explaining that while investigating the Mokli clan, he had been contacted by cultivators of the Jin clan and asked to help overthrow the Mokli clan. Kim accepted without hesitation. He believed that those who ate other humans had no right to live or rule a country. He had already begun gathering martial artists who shared this belief. Kim then asked Seo to join him, adding that once the Jin clan reclaimed the throne, the situation, no matter how grim, would at least improve somewhat. Seo wondered if this was the reason a foundation-building cultivator had stopped them at the end of his second regression. He then agreed to go with Kim and left the palace that same day to meet those who would fight against the Mokli clan. They arrived at a manor on the border of Sekyung Castle. The strongest martial artists in Yanggu were gathered there, elders from both major and minor sects. More than 10 experts at the Three Flowers, gather at the summit in the Pinnacle Realm, stood together. If cultivators did not exist, these martial artists alone could have easily changed the tide of the war. One elder questioned Kim for bringing someone who worked in the palace, while another openly declared his distrust of palace officials. Seo took a deep breath and realized there was only one way to earn their trust. He began shouting his rage at the emperor, cursing him openly. His voice stirred a powerful wind, shocking the elders. After a while, they stopped him. One elder said they trusted him now and told him to stop, while another covered his ears, complaining they were bleeding from Seo's shout. Seo wiped his mouth and said it was a shame he still had much more to say. After gaining the elders' trust, they set out to destroy the cultivators' base. Upon arriving, Seo saw a group led by a red-haired man who remarked that someone among them could be useful. What surprised Seo was that they wore the same clothing as the cultivator he had killed during the palace attack. That meant the man he killed had indeed been a cultivator of the Jin clan. Kim told the red-haired man that he had kept his promise and brought everyone who agreed to help. He hoped they would accept this aid to kill those bastards. The man simply replied that everyone should prepare to depart. Seo asked where Kim was going, and Kim told him to follow. There was one more stop. Before Seo could ask how far, they arrived at a cemetery filled with corpses. Everyone there had been killed by the Mokli clan. Kim had gathered their remains to give them proper graves. Seo asked if he had done all of this alone. Kim did not answer directly. He prayed, then activated a spell. Kim explained that the souls of the dead had become vengeful spirits due to their hatred of the Mokli clan. That was why he had learned the Heavenly Tao spell from the Jin clan, to bring peace to those spirits. He advised Seo not to forget this moment. Not all cultivator spells were hateful. What mattered was how they were used, and instead of focusing solely on becoming stronger, Seo must not lose his mortal spirit. Seo listened in silence. Kim then said it was time to leave. Elsewhere on the mountain, the red-haired cultivator raised his index finger and said he would open the path to the Mokli clan's base. In an instant, the forest landscape twisted and transformed into a castle. Seo and several elders were completely confused when the terrain suddenly changed. At the same time, the air filled with the horrible stench of blood and rotting corpses. From the walls, someone shouted that the invaders had arrived. It was the Jin clan launching their long-awaited attack. In an instant, a barrier rose and protected the entire area. The red-haired chief praised their defensive formation, saying it was as excellent as ever. Kim then stepped forward, causing someone in the back to question who this mortal was for acting without permission. However, the red-haired chief stopped him and said that, although Kim was a mortal, he was different. As unbelievable as it sounded, Kim's prowess was on equal footing with theirs. This shocked the other clan members. Kim focused his mind, and a blue energy gathered in his hand. Seo immediately recognized it as beyond the 5 energies converging to the origin. Kim fired the energy sphere toward the Makli clan's castle, blasting through its formation. The Jin clan members stared in shock as a massive crater formed in the barrier. From the broken gates, countless zombies began to pour out. Seeing this, the red-haired chief shouted for everyone to charge through the creatures and storm the castle. Seo advanced, cutting down everything in his path. The Makli clan members panicked, shouting that the cursed Jin clan had brought numerous top martial artists. Someone from the Makli clan ordered the 1-star and 2-star chi refining cultivators to retreat and call for reinforcements. As he fought, Seo recognized the zombies and the familiar uniforms they wore. The bastard from his previous life, the one who created these zombies and killed Kim, truly belonged to the Makli clan. What disturbed Seo even more was that he could see red lines coming from the zombies, intended attacks. He wondered if these zombies had intentions, but then realized those intentions were coming from the one controlling them. That alone was strange. If that were truly the case, the zombies should also be able to use gang chi, yet they did not. Seo's eyes locked onto a figure in the distance. He knew that person was controlling the zombies. Judging by the size of the cultivator's formation, Seo confirmed that the man was at least a 1-star chi refining cultivator. Seo rushed forward, slashing through the formation and leaving a shallow cut on the cultivator's forehead. Terrified, the cultivator immediately begged for mercy. Seo grabbed him and demanded an explanation for the horrific scene around them. The cultivator quickly surrendered and promised to tell everything. He explained that this was only the first step of refining. With burning fury, Seo asked what that meant. The cultivator explained that they extracted mortal veins and innate vital energies to form origin blood, which was then delivered to higher-ups. The blood would be refined again during the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th refinements. In the end, all the blood from the mortals was turned into a pill, the revival pill, meant for core formation elders. Desperate, the cultivator tried to bribe Seo by offering him origin blood filled with immense energy. Seo calmly interrupted, thanked him, and said that now he could kill them all without hesitation. The cultivator froze in shock. Suddenly, a powerful halberd strike crashed toward Seo. When he turned, he saw his shadow guard captain. Furious, the captain shouted for Seo to shut up. Other shadow guards rushed in as explosions erupted around them from clashing cultivators and martial arts. The captain declared that he did not know Seo and branded him a traitor. Seo asked his captain if he truly knew what the current emperor was doing. The captain confirmed that he did and immediately attacked, but Seo dodged easily. Seo shouted back, asking how he could still pledge loyalty knowing the truth. The captain replied that they were merely the emperor's hands and feet. They did not need to think, only obey. The captain continued attacking. Seo called him foolish, saying that mortals were nothing more than cattle to the emperor. The captain kicked Seo in the stomach, sending him flying. Seo realized that the captain had grown stronger. He had reached 3 flowers, gather at the summit. The captain asked Seo if he was any different and whether the Jin clan was any better. Seo replied that they were different, but the captain cut him off, saying the Jin clan was also filled with cultivators who treated mortals like insects. The only difference was the degree of hatred. Spinning his halberd overhead, the captain shouted that the Jin clan would one day do the same, or worse, to the people of Yanggu. Seo saw countless red lines converging toward him and felt himself being dragged in, unable to stop the captain. Suddenly, he noticed a strange light coming from him, though he could not identify it. The captain declared that if there was no difference between them, then there was no reason not to stay loyal to the emperor. He launched a killing blow infused with gang chi, intending to kill Seo in a single strike. Seo calmly replied, "If that is your decision," and countered with his severing mountain technique, echoing valley. Their attacks collided, causing multiple explosions to rip through the ground. The captain was stunned. Seo knew that it was the only technique capable of blocking Gang Chi, and even he could not yet fully control its power. The captain realized his arm had been destroyed. Even so, he still praised Seo, saying that no matter how many times he saw it, Seo's sword was abnormal. Seo replied that he did not deserve the praise of his swordsmanship. Falling to his knees, the captain said that Seo's sword contained the knowledge of 3 flowers gather at the summit, calling it the most beautiful swordsmanship he had ever seen. He admitted that he had spent his entire life reaching that level, yet it was still nothing compared to cultivators. Martial arts alone could never defeat them. In the end, all he could do was cling to something just to keep living. The captain collapsed completely and said it was a shame they lived by different principles. Seo then asked the shadow guards behind him on why they had not intervened. Seo said that if they had, he would be the one lying on the ground. One guard explained that it was the captain's order. If they interfered, the vice-captain would use poison. Their captain had wanted to fight Seo using pure martial arts. Seo noticed they were still calling him vice-captain. One guard spoke respectfully, saying that once someone was their superior, they would remain so forever. The shadow guards raised their weapons, declaring that their loyalty to the emperor was the same. They would devote themselves until death. Seo sighed and said they were walking the same path as their captain. He then apologized, stating that he might have to kill them all today. Meanwhile, chaos spread throughout the city as explosions erupted everywhere. Kim ordered everyone to push forward and break the enemy's formation. His group advanced relentlessly, cutting down every Makli clan cultivator in their path. Above them, Jin clan members hovered in the air like magicians, raining fire that destroyed everything below. One Makli clan cultivator muttered anxiously, wondering when their reinforcements would finally arrive. At the same time, a sword was cut in half, while a shadow guard knelt before him, asking in confusion why Seo had used a paralytic poison. It would have been easier to simply kill them, and the guard questioned why Seo had gone through so much trouble and even injured himself. Seo calmly replied that it was because they had called in their vice-captain. The last shadow guard froze, then laughed as he fell to the ground. He asked when Seo had reached the level of 3 flowers gather at the summit, since he had seen no red light and yet Seo attacked without warning. Seo explained that he had not reached that level yet. He was only beginning to grasp what it felt like to stand there. After that, he put away his sword. Quietly, Seo spoke to himself, recalling that he had seen another color, purple, but it was unstable and fleeting. He wondered how many more life-and-death situations he would need to face before he could perceive it consistently. Just then, a man standing on a rooftop shouted that Seo was incredible and said he finally understood why his father had sent him there. Seo immediately recognized him. It was Prince Makli Hyun. Seo greeted him, saying it had been a long time, and asked why the prince had not interfered if he had been watching the entire fight. The prince laughed and said it was no fun to join a battle midway. He told Seo to stop calling him Prince, explaining that he was there as a representative of the Makli clan. Seo's anger fled, and he asked if the prince truly found it amusing to watch his guards fight for their lives. The prince laughed again, reminding Seo not to call him Prince, and then asked if Seo knew how he had earned that title in the first place. Seo froze. The prince released an overwhelming aura and declared that he had become a prince by reaching 4-star chi refining at a young age, just like his father. He added that Seo, who stood at 3 flowers gather at the summit, could only threaten 1-star to 3-star chi refining cultivators. With a cruel smile, the prince asked if Seo still believed he could defeat him. Laughing, he said that he never needed guards to begin with. Seo understood the truth immediately. The prince was so powerful that even a martial artist who had fully reached 3 flowers gather at the summit would risk their life fighting him, let alone Seo, who had not yet truly arrived at that realm. Seo knew he would die if he fought the prince, yet a smile spread across his face. He gripped his sword tightly and realized why he had already accepted death. Dying meant nothing to him as long as he could gain enlightenment before the end. If he could learn something in that moment, he could die without regret. His thoughts turned to Kim, who had once stood against 50 foundation-building cultivators. With that realization, Seo charged forward. He told himself that he had never understood Kim's actions in the past, but now he did. The prince merely smiled, calling Seo foolish for running toward his own death. Seo leaped and unleashed one of the techniques from the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts. From the prince's perspective, Seo vanished into thin air the moment the attack was released. Shocked and confused, the prince searched frantically for him. In truth, just before launching the strike, Seo finally understood the record of martial arts surpassions through cultivation and leaps. He had memorized every word of the scriptures, yet until now he had not understood even a single line. That was why, despite possessing a divine art, he had been unable to use it. But the moment he perceived the purple path, everything became clear. Seo recalled a line from the scriptures. In a contest of martial arts, if the clash of hues is the technique, is it not possible to attack the hue itself? Before reaching the Three Blossoms' crown peak, those words had been meaningless to him. Now, at last, he understood their true meaning. A hue was one's will. To attack the hue meant going beyond a simple clash of wills. It meant severing the opponent's very perception, an extension of their own will. The prince remained confused, scanning the area as Seo vanished into the air. Seo became like a phantom, his presence completely erased. At that moment, he remembered, it was the same divine skill Kim had used in the past. A divine technique that cuts away perception itself, making it impossible to locate the user. Seo had nearly closed the distance to the prince and was about to strike him with his sword. Seo felt gratitude toward this martial art, a technique created by man to overcome the heavens. The prince was shocked when Seo's sword appeared at his neck, only to collide with an invisible barrier. He immediately asked Seo what kind of trick he had used. Seo, confused, wondered if the prince had wrapped his entire body in a defensive spell. In the next moment, Seo was blasted away and crashed into a nearby house. The prince extended his hand and calmly praised Seo's trick. Then, without warning, a whirlwind formed around him. He stated that such tricks would not work against cultivators. Realizing he could not win head-on, Seo chose to dodge. The whirlwind began firing wind blades that chased him as he ran. Seo considered using the same trick again to attack the prince, but he knew how terrifyingly powerful those wind blades were. If he got any closer, he would be torn to shreds. He was also unsure how to break through the prince's defensive spell. For now, the only thing he could do was remain outside the prince's conscious domain, observe his will, and dodge the attacks. However, he knew he could not keep this up forever. He would tire far faster than the prince. Seo then realized that the only way to end the duel was to ascend to the Three Blossoms' crown peak. Seeing Seo suddenly stop, the prince grew confused and asked if he was already exhausted. He launched a wind blade at him, but Seo cut it apart with his sword technique, sealing the ridge, shocking the prince. Seo's hand throbbed with intense pain from blocking just a single wind blade, yet he had no choice but to face it directly. A dozen more wind blades rushed toward him without pause. Seo responded with the flowing dragon sword dance, slicing through them. Although he managed to cut the wind blades, small wounds still appeared all over his body. Even so, Seo forced himself onward, determined to push his body to its limits, no matter the consequences. The prince changed his hand formation, and the whirlwind transformed into a massive fish. Seo knew he could neither block nor dodge the incoming attack. Once it reached him, he would die. Strangely, he felt no fear of death. Instead, his thoughts were fixed on the purple will he was seeing and what it represented. Blue was the will of self-protection, and red was the will of killing intent. Seo realized that purple was the point where his will and his enemy's will intertwined. As the fish-shaped tornado charged toward him, everything became clear. He had always believed that the opponent's will was red. But from another perspective, the truth was reversed. To the enemy, their own will was blue, and his will must appear red. His will and the opponent's will were nothing more than a matter of perspective. Seo questioned whether all will truly be the same color. Martial arts could never be perfected alone. One had to connect with the opponent. It was a state where, through the opponent's will, one could mirror one's own actions. At that moment, Seo realized that this was the true state of the Three Blossoms Crown Peak. By reflecting his consciousness within the prince's will, Seo understood how much energy he had been wasting until now. His sword began to glow with a blue aura. At last, he answered the question that had troubled him for so long, why he could never maintain his sword aura for more than a second, no matter how much internal energy he poured into it. Martial arts were not something unleashed through power alone. True martial arts could only be completed by connecting with the opponent's will and the will of the world. Seo swung his sword toward the massive whirlwind fish head using his fifth mountain sword technique, Severing Mountain. A tremendous explosion followed, filling the area with dust and smoke. Nearby, the shadow guards could only watch while collapsed on the ground, paralyzed by Seo. They already believed the outcome was inevitable, that Seo's struggle was meaningless against a cultivator, and that no level of martial arts could rival such an existence. Then something unimaginable happened. Seo's body was suddenly wrapped in a golden aura, and 3 golden flowers bloomed above his head. He had finally reached the Three Blossoms Crown Peak. Seo began absorbing the golden aura through his mouth, and declared that all the chi he had wasted before was now returning. His eyes shone with gold. The prince stared in shock, unable to understand what was happening. Seo challenged him. Though the prince was a cultivator, he formed hand seals like a ninja and mocked Seo, calling him stubborn even after breaking through. 4 dragon heads emerged from the whirlwind formation, but after reaching 3 flowers gather at the summit, these were no longer a threat. Seo charged forward. He finally understood that transcending peak steps and mountain lord steps were meant to be a single movement. Facing the dragon heads, Seo advanced with the mountain lord transcends great peaks, creating a tiger mirage. He leaped and used mountain lord's transcending peak step, destroying the dragon heads one by one. The prince was shaken as Seo rushed toward him, declaring that Seo's tricks would never pass through his tornado. Seo, however, recognized the technique. It was the cultivation of thousands of wind formations. He countered with his 8th sword technique, landscape painting, proving that he could deflect it. The prince was shocked once again. Seo broke into the tornado and rushed straight toward the prince. His first strike failed to break the prince's defensive formation, but Seo knew it would be different now. He could finally use the sword gang. His blade struck the prince's neck. The prince tried to counter, but Seo easily deflected the attack. Terrified, the prince begged Seo not to come closer. Then Seo vanished once more. Panicking, the prince unleashed multiple attacks and shouted for Seo to stay away as he tried to flee. But Seo had already entered his phantom state. He could not allow the prince to escape. Seo sliced through the prince's feet as if cutting soft-boiled tofu. The prince collapsed, unable to believe that a mere martial artist had wounded him. As Seo approached, the prince screamed for him to stop, accusing him of hypocrisy and claiming his actions were no different from the Jin clans. He argued that the Jin clan also consumed pills to cultivate, just as Seo had once received a pill from the emperor. Seo revealed the pill and crushed it into dust, declaring that he would never take anything created by cultivators. The prince fell silent. Seo said his farewell as the prince continued to beg. just as Seo raised his sword to strike, a beam of light burst from the prince, severing Seo's head. From Seo's fading perspective, the world turned upside down. He realized he had been beheaded. He knew the prince was not the true culprit. Only a foundation-building cultivator, or someone like Kim who had surpassed the 5 energies converging to the origin, could perform such an attack. As his life faded, memories from his first regression onward flashed before his eyes. On another battlefield, Kim severed a cultivator's head and raised his sword in triumph. He had defeated a foundation-building cultivator, proving that martial artists could overcome them. Back with Seo, as his consciousness dimmed, he recalled how his second regression had passed in an instant. He remembered fighting alongside Kim, days filled with hope, and days when that hope was crushed. He remembered his own helplessness and the vow he repeated endlessly, if only he were stronger, if only he worked harder, if only he could go further. Lying upside down, Seo refused to die after finally reaching the realm he had only dreamed of. He still had to cut down the prince. The prince realized that a talisman around his neck had saved him. It was a one-time artifact from his father, capable of unleashing the power of foundation building. Laughing madly, the prince declared his victory, even though he had lost his legs. Seo questioned why cultivators always seemed to win. He remembered Kim facing 50 foundation-building cultivators, defeating one, yet standing against countless others, as numerous as stars in the night sky. Unnoticed by the prince, Seo's hand moved. The prince, focused on himself and exhausted of spiritual power, failed to see it. Seo knew cultivators were an impassable wall far beyond his reach. In the past, he had nearly abandoned martial arts, thinking of returning to life as a soap vendor. But Seo's determination had never faded. The prince's face twisted in disbelief as Seo's body began to move, without its head. Seo remembered Kim sacrificing himself to face 50 cultivators. The prince cried out, unable to understand why mortals could hold such obsession. Another memory surfaced, Seo shouting for Kim not to sacrifice himself, and Kim calmly replying that Seo had always done his best. Seo's body mimicked Kim's final sword movement and beheaded the prince. Seo had trained his entire life. His body had endured endless suffering. His hand had held the sword until it shattered. The martial arts he refined through a lifetime moved his body even after death to complete his mission. The prince died in absolute terror as his head hit the ground. Seo finally closed his eyes, smiling. Seo's life of refinement had ended. Kim appeared once more and said that this was how it should be done, that effort would never betray him. He reminded Seo to keep the mindset that if one reaches enlightenment in the morning, one can die peacefully in the evening. Never forget that feeling. Your efforts will surely one day bring you a morning worthy of your sweat, and that was Seo's 5th regression and also the end of Season 1. I hope you enjoyed it, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my small channel.